Hello, my name is Greta Harrison. Welcome to Born Fabulous Podcast, Season 3, Episode 20. The theme of this season is young adults with intellectual disabilities living full lives of independence and interdependence. This episode features June and Jim Zoll and Melody and Bob Ruppel. It is the fourth of 8 episodes with the Zouls and the Ruppels, which is part of an in-depth series about marriage featuring parents, self-advocates with support staff, and an employer. Both the Zouls and the Ruppels are retired and have been married over 40 years. They are the parents of James Zoll and Kristen Rupple, who've been married over 5 years. James and Kristen have Down syndrome. Now, please enjoy this clip of Love is a Potion. The lyrics are by Melissa Riggio, who was the focus of Season 1, Episodes 1 through 4. The music and voice are by Rachel Fuller. But before we move on, because I love the story of how they met, but I skipped something. And if I don't do it now while I remember, I might forget. Can you give me some examples or an example of something that you implemented early in your now adult's life that helped them be more independent, interdependent later? Can you think of something? And it can be something small too.
Something small.
It doesn't have to be small. I'm just saying it can be something small. It can be small or big.
I think in my case, because I had other children younger and they were all so close in age, and I also had a teenager, so with completely different needs, there was just one day where I just decided I can't keep all this up. I mean, I think when you have a kid with special needs and they tell you they need physical therapy and occupational therapy and speech therapy, you get in this mindset of, if I don't do every one of these things, I'm going to wreck my kid's life. They won't be everything they can be because I didn't do all that stuff. But when she was about 4 or 5 and I'm taking all these other kids with me to all these therapies, I'm looking at the other kids and going, well, they got to have time to take a dance lesson. They got to have time to do these other things. So I think just because the way my life was set up, I just made up my mind that Kristen would benefit the very most by just being part of the family. And I couldn't give her every single solitary moment. And in the long run, that's one of the things that helped her be really independent, Yeah. And which she is very independent, and determined. Was she just, wanted to do the things that her sisters do, and skipping one of those therapies didn't make a big difference in that. It just gave me a sense where I let some of that guilt go, and so I think it just kind of for us happened organically, that she had to learn.
Yeah. There's a famous advocate named Kathy Snow who talks about that her son was Benjamin Snow. Is that name familiar to either of you?
No.
But she talks about therapy world. Mm-hmm. And because her son has significant disabilities and he had numerous therapies. And at a certain point in his life, he kind of let her know he didn't really want to be in therapy world. And it was a wake up call to her that I'm not saying therapy isn't important. So please don't misunderstand that. But it was a wake up call that some things can be done at home and some things can be done other ways. For instance, the dance classes Kristen took, that's physical therapy.
Yes.
And the art classes she took, that's occupational therapy. And being fully included, I argue, is speech therapy. So, sure. There's different ways, and that's what Kathy Snow talks about, that therapy is important and we need guidance and we need to learn, but we don't need to be caught in this world of going 24/7, regardless of how many children you have. But I can totally understand that when you have 4 kids, because you're split. And yeah, I understand that. That's a great example. What about you, June?
Yeah, I have to kind of piggyback on that first and just say it's so nice the way that you articulate all of that, Melody. It makes me just, I'm learning from this podcast about things, and that was just one part of what I've learned. So thank you for that. And I'd have to say that for James, something that happened and continues to happen early on that has helped his independence, interdependence, is just his organizational, early on, with his schoolwork or his bedroom or his cooking for himself, or just any of those life skills that he had to learn early on, definitely helped him to be the man that he is today. Him taking pride in his appearance when he goes to school, having his homework done, being accountable for his spelling tests has helped with his reading, just all of it.
You've mentioned his spelling a couple times. So I just want to jump in here because my daughter was also a good speller. And I remember a few teachers, they're always trying different educational things every year and trying these systems. And one time, this particular teacher just automatically she had different groups of words for different kids. And she automatically just gave my daughter the lowest group and only 5 words. And she was like in 4th grade. And I'm like, I've always said, give her the same number of words as everybody else. She's a good speller. Give her what everybody else has. And I wouldn't say it was a battle, but it was an exercise in making that teacher realize just because somebody has Down syndrome doesn't mean they can't be a good speller or a good reader or a good whatever. And give them the chance. Just give them the opportunity, because what's made them who they are is that they had a chance.
Yeah.
So, and I like that, because you're right. It helps in their texting. It helps in life when they're able to spell. I had one teacher in middle school say, it doesn't matter if they can spell because they're spell check. And I said, excuse me, that's not correct. It's just, it does matter. So I'm sorry. Didn't mean to go off on a tangent, but I see so much I agree with what both of you are saying.
Could I add one other thing on to what Melody and June both said too? Along those same lines, but a little different slant. We had said that we learned early on not to just take Kristen's limitations or what other people think are Kristen's limitations, and let Kristen determine her own limitations and when she needs help. So one of our early on philosophies, at least mine was just to treat her like all my other daughters. Melody has a large extended family, so Kristen has tons of cousins too. So she had all that socialization and example setting, et cetera, of how she should act, but not just about social skills, but any situation that Kristen is in, my attitude is she can do it herself. So my initial way of approaching it is not to help her at all. And just say, Kristen, this is what you need to do. Let me know if you need some help. And of course, if she needs some help, then you give it to her. But it's amazing what she can do when you just throw her in and say, sink or swim. And even yesterday, her purse had been stolen. And I won't get into that whole story, but I took her to the DMV to get her new California ID card. And I could have easily taken her in there and just say, follow me around, Kristen, and I'll get this card for you. But if anyone's been to the DMV, you might know what that experience is like. But I took her in there and I had her do it all. I had her go up and talk to the people at the windows. I was right behind her. if she needed anything. I explained to her how we'd been given a letter and a number, and you have to look for it up on the screen and then find out what window you're going to and listen to where they tell you to do and all that kind of stuff. And I just explained that to her. And I said, okay, you're on your own. And then I started challenging her, well, see, right now the number's on this for this window. Where is that window? Just that kind of thing. And simple things like she didn't want to be in there with her glasses on because she didn't look as nice with her glasses on in her mind. And so, of course, she couldn't read any of the numbers that were up over the windows. So, she eventually put on her glasses and was able to coordinate with everything perfectly. So I just stood back from her and let her go. And I think that early on, having that as their philosophy, not hovering over them and all that, but just be observant to when they really do need some help. But just assuming they can do it, explaining to them what they need to do, and then turning them loose. And that has really worked for Kristen.
Yeah.
And she takes great pride in being able to figure things out.
And it sounds like you've also given her a very important skill of being able to ask for help when she needs it. Because a lot of people, that's hard for them. But but what you've done is you've shown her she can do it and she knows how to ask for help when she needs it, right?
Yeah, we have the opposite problem. She doesn't ask for help, but sometimes she should because she thinks she can figure everything out. She sometimes doesn't know what she doesn't know. And that's the issue we have to look for more than,
And James is just the opposite. He asks for help continually. But that's because I'm one of those that would go into DMV and walk up to every counter and do all the talking. Yeah. So it's interesting how
she had to pay for it with her debit card. She had to sign all this fingerprinting, get the picture taken, all this stuff you have to do.
I think that's great. And that's where you guys inspire us, is to just kind of allow, I'm trying after all these years, I'm still trying to allow him to do more. It's interesting. Go ahead, Greta.
I just think I love that. Thank you for that input, Bob. I really appreciate that.
Well, this is interesting.
Greta, you hit on a real good point earlier on this latest part, and that is giving them the opportunity. All they want sometimes is that opportunity.
Just giving them a chance.
I've never, to this day, I'm still impressed along the way by what the results of an opportunity can be, with James and Kristen both. So.
And that the difference between James and Kristen and who they are now, and the difference between James and Kristen and who they might have been if they didn't have all the opportunities they had along the way, is night and day.
Yes.
They are who they are because of their opportunities.
Yeah.
And even though your stories are different, there's many more similarities than differences.
Yeah.
So I think that's absolutely great. Bob, when you were talking about being in the room and coming in your suit and taking the names, it reminded me of when Steve Riggio, the former CEO of Barnes and Noble, he talked about, because his wife was a teacher, so she was an educator, and he noticed at this one particular IEP meeting, he asked who everybody was, and then he asked how they knew his daughter, and nobody in the room knew his daughter. And he said when nobody in the room knew his daughter, he left that meeting and told his wife, "We're moving." And they moved. They literally moved.
That's a great story.
Yeah, he tells that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's something I never asked and I should have.
He said, "How do you know my daughter?" And he said nobody knew his daughter.
Wow.
And it's
they were all there to determine what the fate of his daughter was going to be.
And they didn't know her.
Isn't that something?
Yeah.
Well,
so
go ahead.
No, you go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, I would just going to say two things real quick. One is that we, even as parents today, and we certainly have to help the aids that are provided to Kristen and James to understand that you'll assume they can't do as much as they can do, And then sometimes you'll assume they can do one thing, so therefore they can certainly do these other things, and assume they can do more than what they can really do. And it's really a learning experience, and the goal is to go through that experience and learn what they can and can't really do, and then challenge them on the things they can't do, and let them go on the things that that they obviously can do. The other thing I was just going to mention is how fortunate the four of us are to have each other as parents. Because if we didn't have the relationship we have, it wouldn't work at all.
Oh, and trust me, I'm going to get into that for sure. That's a big part of this conversation, because anybody who's a parent who has a child who's old enough to have a relationship knows that it's not just the two of them, it's the families too. They have got to mesh. So yeah, that's definitely true. If you could change one thing about their school years, what would it be? And then piggyback on that and tell me what your greatest joy was of their school years. And if there's nothing that you would change, you can say that. I mean, that's totally up to you.
Yeah, I don't know that I couldn't think of a situation that an instant that I would change anything. I would just always want to get more support and to support the teachers more and to make the inclusion a successful thing for James and the teachers and everyone involved. So the change I would make is just continue to ask for more support. And for James, one of the biggest highlights was the basketball CIF championship in San Diego. At the end of his senior year, it just kind of spoke to so many successes that James had through his schooling years, and his confidence and his friendships and all of that. So that was probably everyone's greatest joy for that.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
There's no words to describe what it's like to be part of a team, are there?
Yeah.
That's great. Okay, Melody and Bob.
Well, as far as changing, I don't think we'd change anything. I guess you'd like the system to change and and make it easier so that we don't have to work so hard to make all these things happen for our kids. But obviously it's 23 and not all that much has changed. And I guess the highlights are that she just got to have a regular life experience. It was the big joke with my other daughters and their friends that Kristen was always the one that had the date for prom.
That's true.
And she had more boyfriends than any of them. And she went to the prom in a limo with, a group of friends. So I think that's probably our greatest joy. She has fabulous memories of all that.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. I love that. Tell me about graduation. What was their high school graduation like? Was there anything special? Were there any special stories?
Not really. I mean, she had her cap and gown and got to walk with everybody else. And, again, it was just that normalcy.
The fact that there aren't a bunch of stories about how their graduation was for someone with a handicap or a ability, a different ability, it's a success story and the special story in itself.
Yeah.
It was just
ours was the same, and I totally agree with you guys. Yeah.
Pretty normal.
Yeah.
And it was a big, exciting moment, really, for family and friends, and a lot of support there and that.
Yeah.
Okay. And then
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead, Bob.
Well, I've just off of what Jim said. The one thing I guess that is a little different is that with Kristen, and I'm sure with James, the whole family really took part. And that's not necessarily uncommon for the whole family to come out and support a graduate, any graduate of high school. But again, with Kristen, everyone was so, provided. We're part of the support story for her whole life.
Yeah.
So they came out and it was an extra special, as was her wedding, which we'll get into later.
Yeah.
Mhm. So
But
you would say it was
it was,
magnified, right? You're just saying
it
it was
was
magnified.
extra special in that it was happening as a normal thing,
Yeah.
as a
Yeah.
non-special event, in a sense. But that she could experience that just like anybody else.
That's wonderful. That's great. So after high school, they both went and did some classes at the local community college.
Yes.
I did.
Okay. And did they have any classes together?
At the local community college,
Mhm.
yes.
They
Uh-huh.
did. They
They
did have
did.
some classes together. Okay.
They did. That was kind of the time period that they became boyfriend and girlfriend. I think that the college, were they there about 4 or 5 years? I think off and on
Yeah.
James took
It was probably about 4 years.
4 years.
Yeah.
I think James started with work in the workout room and swimming and weights and computer classes. After they became boyfriend and girlfriend and they took more classes together, they took salsa dance together. I think, did Kristen take some reading classes in the
Yeah, she took some
lab?
reading classes. There was actually a disability department at that junior college, and Kristen had some extra support. She took a couple regular classes. She took sign language. She took the first, because she was worked in a kindergarten classroom. And so she would have loved to have got the preschool certification, but she made it through the first class okay, but the second one was really too hard. I mean, she took a couple semesters of sign language. She actually knows quite a bit of sign language. And then she took a lot of like dance and swim and
not a lot of mathematics or science.
No.
Yeah.
That's not Kristen's strong suit.
Math is hard.
Math is hard.
Thank you for listening to episode 20 of Born Fabulous Podcast 3rd season. I hope you enjoyed it and want to hear more. Short video clips from most episodes are available on our YouTube channel and on bornfabulouspodcast.com. You can also hear all released episodes of Born Fabulous Podcast on YouTube now. In episode 21, you will hear the Zouls and the Ruppels discuss James and Kristen's jobs and their dating journey. Please follow and like us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Threads. If you enjoyed this episode, I'd be honored if you would leave a review wherever you heard this podcast. Now please enjoy this clip of Love is a Potion. The lyrics are by Melissa Riggio, who was the focus of Season 1, Episodes 1 through 4. The music and voice are by Rachel Fuller.